Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. My name is Martyn Warwick. I'm talking with John Healy from Intel. John, good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
We last met in Washington DC in the fall. What's happened in the SDN and NFV space globally since then?
Yeah, it's. I think the dynamism of the market is pretty interesting. If this event is any example, you can hardly pass a stand that doesn't have NFV written on it, proof points or demos or pilot implementations of different functions being virtualized, different elements of the network, starting to see the benefits of what NFV promised. The other thing I think that's interesting, since we spoke last, we talked a lot about how the industry had to start to take proof points out of the lab and into the network, start to implement some real trials, and we've seen some very public announcements of that. Everything from virtual PC or virtually CPE on the within the network, moving that back into the edge of the network and running it as a virtual instantiation, a virtual EPC in the mobile core. All the way through to applications of virtualization in the radio access network for reasons of better utility of the assets and such. All of those becoming public demonstrations of what the service providers, what the operators are doing with the technology.
Well, if we think back, I think it was October 2012 when SDN and NFV sprang out from nowhere into the world, and we both watched the hype cycle and the puffery build around it,
right,
particularly over spring and summer last year, and then October or so, things started to calm down a bit, and we began to see that there is reality underneath the hot air,
right,
and it is a solid business case, and that people are aware of it. As you mentioned, the collaboration is there and has to be there for this to work. Are we seeing implementations in the core yet, or is it more, as I've been told, around the edge where things are really happening?
It's mostly around the edge from what we've seen so far. I think interestingly, in 2012, we gained two new acronyms. A lot of activity around it, a lot of what some have called SDN washing, that everything became an SDN device.
That's right.
But since then, and I think the utility toward the edge of the network has become very clear. Many announcements from some of the big equipment manufacturers focusing on how at the edge of the network they can create more intelligence, more cloud-like capabilities for the composition of resources on demand or on a per service basis. I think the utility is being seen there most because it has the impact of giving more efficient usage of the resource and more flexibility in the type of service that can be created on top of it. So that's, I think, why we're seeing the momentum of real deployment there.
We were talking also last time we met about the fact that this is being driven, this whole momentum seems to be being driven not so much by the manufacturers for a change, but by the actual end users, the service providers themselves. Is their input as high and as involved as it was before?
Yeah, very much so. I think that one of the themes and tenets that have continued is the desire of the end user community, service providers particularly, to be the directors of change, to define the use cases. We've seen the NFV forum define their use cases. I think that's been very positive in stimulating industry collaboration around how you deliver to those and fulfill them. And I think that's continuing to be the case, that the responses we're seeing are from the industry. The collaborations, the technology, the proof points are all responses to the use case, fulfillment of the use case that was prescribed. So the problem statement has maintained one of how do we give a more flexible, more capable, more efficient network to the service provider, and they're maintaining that position in how they're defining what it is they want to achieve. So that's a good development for the way the industry will evolve. It's also continuing to maintain a focus where the most return can be for the consumer of the technology once it comes to market.
And what about as far as Intel itself is concerned? You said before to me in our previous chats that you're completely committed to it. Is that commitment still as solid as it was? Is it even harder than it was? And where are you going next?
Yeah, I think, so the commitment is absolutely as solid as it was. We're continuing on the same trajectory we've always been on, create the right ingredients, create platform capabilities, integrate them, optimize them, bring them to market as a set of reference product, but be very directed by and informed by the use case that you're trying to support. It's not about bringing technology and finding application, it's responding to the use case and defining the right technology to serve it. So that continues, no change at all, no delay or change in our strategic direction and desires there. What we've also done though is we've taken that further step to start to really double down on some of the collaborations. I mean, in previous times I talked about kind of a call to arms for the industry to recognize that this is something that it won't occur as effectively as it could by by individuals working independently, that it really requires that collaboration, that building of an ecosystem. We've done some very deliberate things from a collaboration perspective with ALU, with Cisco, things that were announced at this show, to really double down on where we believe we can create the greatest benefit together. Combining expertise, combining focus, and expeding the industry's adoption of technologies that are optimized to serve the use cases.
Have you found any difficulties in the collaboration? I mean, you're talking about companies, organisations that in the past wouldn't have looked each other in the eye over a bar. I mean,
yeah, it's interesting.
Is it a matter of necessity, mother invention, and all that? And is there a general acceptance and realisation that if you don't collaborate, it's not going to work?
Yeah, I think that's part of it for sure. I think there's also an evolution within all organisations, that there's a change underway. It's not a question of if, it's when. If you're going to participate, then participate early. First mover advantage, time to market advantage of solutions isn't lost on them. But there's also, I think, a recognition, and I think I've said this before too, is that the established long-term suppliers to this industry have a huge degree of capability and competence and experience that they bring to bear. So it's really important that they're part of the solution. Recognizing that, then they're embracing what the new technology can provide, and willingly participating in the collaborations that will fulfill the solutions that can be provided. Because I think it's in everybody's interest that it happens. So I think there's a willingness to participate more than there might have been in the past. But I also think there was a natural reluctance when technology is very immature and new.
Final question to you: with the evolved, changed, all IP, all-encompassing wireless wireline, there's no differentiation network of the future based on the cloud and SDN and NFV and whatever comes next. What do you think are the fundamental basic building blocks, almost the DNA of how the new network is going to evolve? I
think it's, as I said earlier, I think it becomes use case defined. So if we think of the evolution of being one of a network that was, functionally based, then service based, then experience or application based. The building blocks are those that contribute to the applications, the services that are deployed on top of it that enable that use case. So programmatic, scalable, flexible, efficient, all of these are the kind of adjectives you'd use to describe that network, and then the building blocks that contribute to it. I think within that then there's a concept that there has to be a degree of consistency, standardization, openness at the platform and at the interface level. And then if those components exist, then the network of the future is the one that is the platform for innovation for the new services. I think that's how I would describe it. I think it's less about the individual technologies themselves, but in what they provide.
Okay, John Healy, good to see you again. Thank you. Cheers.